everyone, and welcome from sunny South Florida. This is USA Global TV and Radio. I'm Dr. JACALYN KERBECK. I'm the president, founder, and chief listening officer here at our network, where we celebrate you and elevated listening. Our show today is Talking Peace Around the World. This is our second episode. We got really good feedback about the first episode, and we've decided to continue these conversations once a month. So thank you for taking the time to be with us. Our topic today is finding peace in a world of political unrest. And I can't say everywhere in the world, but at least here in the United States, the politicians are always duking it out. Literally, we just had politicians grabbing one another, punching, pushing, and it seems to really get in the way of us finding peace. So when we look to our leaders who can't find peace, and then it sort of trickles down from there. So let's find out what our experts think about this topic. We have our expert correspondents from across the world. They are renowned broadcasters with extensive experience. All you have to do is Google them and you will see all that they have put out into the world. They all lead their lives with their hearts, and that's why they're here. We provide education, a little bit of entertainment, hope, and inspiration. So thank you for joining us. Let's bring in our panel. Joining us from London, Ian Pelham-Turner. Hello.
Good morning, or is it good afternoon? I'm not sure where you are. It's good evening from us.
Well, we have people watching from all over the world, so all of those things would be appropriate. So thank you. All right, let's welcome also from London, HELENA CHARD. Hello.
Hi, lovely to see you. Good
Lovely.
Evening and good morning to you.
Thank you so much. And joining us from New Jersey, the great state, the Garden State of New Jersey in the United States, Mr. CINI. Hello.
Hello, everybody. And the Garden State is a matter of opinion, but thank you very much for including me in the conversation.
And joining us from Sydney, Australia, it's DAIZY GEDEON. Hello.
Hi, everyone. How are you? Good
Hi.
morning. We've just broken morning. Yeah. Great to
I
meet
love
you again
that.
and have this conversation.
It just amazes me how we had just said somebody from New Zealand on the last show, how some people are going to sleep, some people are getting up, some people it's a day later. It is amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Shows
I think
you just sorry, go on.
yeah, no, it's but also wherever you are in the world, you can feel some type of desire that people have to come together and find peace. I really believe at the core, as humans, that we really want there to be peace on earth, but yet there's so much unrest, and a lot of it, we look to our leaders across the world and we look to them and say, hey, what can you do to help us with that? So who wants to start off this conversation? I'm going to go to Mr. Pelham-Turner.
Okay, well,
I do, and I'm not exactly sure where I'm going to go with this, but I'm looking at Helena, and I'm hoping she'll be able to pick this up when I get it started. One of the problems, I think, with finding peace in the world is that there's so much money to be made by making trouble.
Wow.
And what I think I want to kind of start with is Prince Harry's book, which I know is big news in the UK.
You are so correct.
There's no money to be made writing a book about. I'm sorry.
I think what you're saying, yeah, absolutely. I mean, at the moment, it's big news here. It's big news with you as well. But it seems to be going from one catastrophe to another. And I think a lot of people are like, stop, come on. No, but in reality, sustainable, heartfelt leadership, as we know, is what is required. And I would say Prince Harry does not have this circle around him at the moment. In fact, I would, absolutely state that he hasn't. And I would say that the people around him are obviously after the money as well. He doesn't have the advice really to say, stop now. You are, causing such a catastrophe with your nearest and dearest. But obviously, money talks. Money talks, and a huge amount of money is being made. Millions, isn't it? I keep saying thousands. It's millions and millions and millions. And each interview it keeps going on. I mean, I just keep thinking it's like a bomb's going off. And when I look, you know, I actually don't recognise Harry at all, and I feel really, really quite sad because I can see deep trauma in him, and I think possibly the everyday person looking also sees that. You know, there is a lot of upset, despite the fact he states he's at peace. I don't know if everyone's realised that. He says this is the most peaceful he's been, you know, with his family and children. But, you know, peace, you need to be able to forgive, for one, to be at peace. And you certainly don't want to be throwing bombs and throwing your family under the bus. But having said that, you know, I am it's so sad to see his pain and grief about his mother. And I do feel there should have been a lot more help instilled, given to him when he's younger. He's been through a lot of therapy, probably more therapy than needs to be given, in fact, maybe not the right therapy. And now I do see the trauma in him because, you know, he's to me acting like a petulant child, and it's reactory and upsetting to people. And yeah, it's the thing about it is, you know, we're looking forward to the coronation, which is in about 4 months, and at the moment this is a time, it's in between the accession and the coronation, and this is King Charles's time. This is the monarchy's time to shine, and obviously all of this is getting in the way. I mean, I'll stop now, but obviously we need celebration, and I think unfortunately it's Harry has caused a divide, and I just don't see. I want there to be a remedy, because for the sake of moving forward and the Commonwealth and so many things. How lovely would it be if they were to be a family again? But I do think lines have been crossed. So let's see.
Thank you, Helena. And I have a follow-up comment to what you just shared, and I'm not going to relate it directly to the royal family, but if you think about it, if there is discourse in your own family, right? If you're not at peace with yourself and you're not at peace with your family, this happens to trickle through into other relationships. And then one person is upset, and then 2 people are upset, then 4 people, and then it goes on and on and on. And I thought it was interesting. I didn't watch the 60-minute special, but from what I read, Harry said that he hasn't spoken to his brother or to his father, but he's hoping that they will at some point. I'm thinking, I don't think this is the right way to go about it, just as you know, as somebody observing. But yet in life, that's what happens. We hope something's going to happen, but we have to take action. And that's what I'm hoping we can get to today. How can our politicians take action? How can we help our politicians if possible? I'm going to go over to Ian.
Okay, I think you're quite right, Jacqueline. I think all of us have got the same situation, is that it appears to me that politicians create wars. Politicians could create peace, but a lot of the time they are really deliberating around their own political agenda rather than sometimes for the good of the country. They try to hide it and clothe it as for the good of the country, but a lot of the time it's just really purely political ambition as well. So I think, you know, for me, what I'd like to see a lot more, which is what's happening right now, and I know DAIZY is doing it extremely well in Lebanon, is really putting politicians' feet to the fire, you know, listening to them, but also questioning them much more closely. And obviously with the knowledge that people, I think at the moment with politicians, they're becoming more and more trained. You know, I look at our Prime Minister in London. I think he's over trained nowadays, and he's answering the question before the question's been asked. You know, and you know, it's a sort of a professionalism that it doesn't answer any questions at all. And I think, you know, in reality nowadays, there was something I was introduced to a little while ago, which is a new credit type of online system where if a politician creates a lie, it will go up onto this credit system now, and it stays up there telling millions of people across the world this is a lie until that politician actually retracts that statement and brings it back down again. So perhaps we're looking at AI in some way actually controlling politicians.
Wow.
I love that system. I think
Yeah.
that's great.
I'll buy shares in that one.
It's kind of like a Pinocchio system. The more like they lie, the longer their noses get. I think that's hilarious. I would love that.
Daisy, Ian mentioned about how you're holding politicians accountable. Tell us more about that.
Look, I wanted to just go on from what Ian said, something very interesting about the professionalism. Politics to me today is a business, and probably has been for a long time, but more and more so. It's not politics as it in its purest sense. It's business controlled by what Al said, how to make money, and it all ties in together with big money. And I'm sure this is nothing new, but this is where we have to start contemplating how the world is being played, how the people of the world are being played. And it's big business in bed with politics, because that's money and power. And you need money and power to control the world. And yes, as Ian mentioned, and as you brought up, the perfect case of how extreme it can get when power and money and then greed accentuating that desire get involved. You have a situation as you have in Lebanon, where you have a group of oligarchs who have now become extremely comfortable because they've been around for 30 years and have no conscience for the people. Sadly, the majority, but we have to try and hold them accountable and try and reawaken the hope of people through knowledge and power, to show them how they can bring their politicians to account. And that's what everyone around the world needs to be doing, is holding our politicians, our leaders to account, protesting, but peacefully and with intelligence. And if we had that system that Ian just mentioned in place, the AI system, it would be phenomenal. So Ian, is that a real thing, or is it just a dream that you're talking about?
No, it's a real thing. It's I'll introduce. In fact, the guy who's created it is Australian, so there must be something about Aussies that want to know about the truth.
Yeah, just want facts. Whereas as we say, we're fair dinkum in down under. We're fair dinkum.
I'd like to ask our panel, for people who are watching this or listening to this and thinking, I'm just one person, I can't go up against my congressman or my senator or my governor or my president. What can we do to make change?
That's, I think that's a great question and a big question. And I think speaking as an American, what I try to do is to think about voting for somebody as though I were hiring for a job. It's not so much about who you like or who you hate, which is how most politics is framed these days. It's about who you think is going to be the best person for the job that you're voting for. I really wish that most votes were cast that way. I mean, we live in a world where we think the threat to democracy is that somebody is going to break into the voting machine and steal the votes, but it's the voters that are broken. The people that actually send representatives to government are not voting based on what they understand needs to be done. They're voting based more on what they see on television and what they're told by the media. We had this conversation too last week. There's no intelligence in the process anymore. There's no maturity in the process anymore. It's a kind of like a random reality TV show free-for-all. And I think that's a huge threat to democracy, and it's corrosive to government.
You see,
They don't choose you based on values. It's about how good you can perform for them. You're a trained monkey.
Yeah, I think the reality at the moment is we have to be very, very careful as well, because we're looking at Brazil today. Bolsonaro, who apparently is in America at the moment, the former president of Brazil, and then looking at the Brazilians from his party storming the center, and it's almost like a reenactment of 2 years ago in America. And so the issue at the moment is, how can people peacefully, and that is the underlying word, how can people peacefully react to a situation, and that we ensure that peacefully people will be listened to. But it appears at the moment that more and more organizations seem to think the only way to bring down a government or stop something happening that they don't want to see is through force. And so, how do you create a peaceful element to it is the hardest thing, I think, of the lot to actually discuss.
I think there's so many different aspects, isn't there, to peace? And you can start from the early years where you're teaching people to listen, teaching people, right, wrong, etc., having a common sense of belief and purpose and working together, and that identity and love and passion, and really sort of believing in what you want to achieve, and working together on that. I mean, that, there's always going to be someone, there's always going to be corruption, there's always going to be, even if you have a momentary great peace time, there's always going to be someone that's going to come along and want to change things and wants to create upset. So it's hard to know which way to go. But I think also, if we can use social media as a positive force, I say that, and I think about Twitter and how awful it can be, but if you use social media as a positive force, that could really ramp up if dealt with effectively.
I'd like to jump in.
Sure.
I'd like to jump in on that question, Dr. Jack, because you said, how can people, individuals, they don't feel comfortable going to their political leaders and their senators, congressmen in Australia, our MPs, members of parliament. I think that we are missing a very powerful opportunity, because especially in Australia, in America, in Britain, the constituents hold all the power. Those leaders are scared. I know when we pick up the phone and call our local member, they're worried to hear when they hear from us. And it doesn't matter whether it's local, state or federal. In Australia, we have the 3-tier system. But they are actually worried. And in America, I know it's very true as well. So people actually have to realize when they pick up that phone and they make a call to their local member's office and say, I'm not happy about this. I'm not happy about your policy on, Black Lives Matter, or on women's rights, or on going to war in XYZ, or the crisis in Ukraine, or whatever. Their member actually listens to them and they get worried about it. When they get 10 people calling them about the same issue, there is an amplification, and I'm not sure what the statistic is, but when I was a journalist at the papers, we used to get worried when we had a number of people write in on a topic. When we had one member of a letter come into the editor or a phone call come in, that would mean that there are at least 100 other people around the country, at least 100, also of the same opinion. And so we had to be cautious about what, opinion we put out there, or the stories we covered and how we covered them, because this wasn't the view of the people. So this is the power actually anyone has who lives in any area who has a vote. You are so powerful, and you don't realize how powerful and intimidating you are to your local member. So you need to use your voice.
Daisy, I have a question for you, and because this is a problem actually here in the United States and maybe in the UK. You vote for a politician, you send a politician to government, the politician ends up more loyal to the party they're a member of than to the people that voted for them. And party politics is so powerful and so influential and so compelling. You feel as though your voice doesn't matter. I mean, as an average citizen, you feel as though whatever it is you voted for, representation locally, is kind of lost in the noise of party politics. Do you feel the same in Australia and in the Middle East?
So I hear you, Al, and I know that happens. The only reason that happens, Al, is because the people in the local area stop complaining to their local member, because that local member will go back to their party, the Republicans, the Democrats, or whoever they are, and say, hey, I'm not going to vote down this line on this issue in this way because my local members are so against it. So, for instance, in my area, climate change is huge in our area. And, you know, we had local members who are the party politics line for the Liberal Party was, you know, there was no, you know, climate change for a while, you know, then, but this area and the constituents of this area were very educated, very well informed and very vocal about climate change. And you have to realize if the constituents stand together, the member must listen or they're going to lose their seat in the next election. So that's what they take back to their party and say, I'm not going to lose my seat to vote along these lines because we will have lost our seat and that's not good for the party. So the reality is we still have the power, but we need to realize how to use it. But we need to be active and mobilized, and again, not aggressively, but you know, intelligently. And there are lobby groups out there everywhere who know how to manipulate and you know, push politics, push their politicians to achieve what they want for their own you know, self-interest or their community interest. But we have to use that as a group and as people in our community much more effectively.
I think there's a problem. There's a problem, and I think, but basically it's generational as well, because when I talk to young people now, they don't want to talk to politicians. You know, they really want to. They're on blockchain. They're on different methods of actually interrupting and corrupting governments across the world. You know, using social media and the like. My generation is you know, if I had someone come on the phone to me the other night saying he's got a particular problem, and I said, well, look, the only way, you know, if the police won't deal with this problem, the only other way of doing it is to go to your local MP and talk to your local MP. I think that the problem a lot of the time these days is, and I take on our point of view as well, that when it comes to a politician either listening to his constituents or listening to the party, a large proportion of the time he will listen to his party first and his constituents second, with the hope that he can actually, he or she can actually change people's minds at the end of the day, you know. And I think, you know, and so where there has to be more connection, I think, is young people especially, but who will connect in with a political system rather than trying to create a system now that is really there to disrupt rather than to actually to communicate with. You know, that you know, a lot of people that, as I say, that I talk to, that they mistrust every single politician, and I think quite rightly so. You know, having worked behind the scenes with politics as well, you know, they're not the easiest group to actually get any type of straight answer from at any time, and they're actually trained to divert rather than to converse. So it's how do you create that? And just so something that just to put a thought into this forum as well is perhaps I wonder whether we could even start doing peace classes for children in schools, where you know, different opinions can be talked about, but they can find a peaceful outcome. If children from a young age realize they don't have to fight physically in order to be heard, but can use their sense of communication to actually overcome problems, that will be a wonderful class lesson, I think, to learn in schools across the world.
Yeah,
I think that's a brilliant point, Ian. Absolutely. And we've discussed this before, that a big component of peace is being able to listen, because when we're always talking, we're not listening, right? So I think that that is really a wonderful place to start. So we've shared the fact that if we can learn peace at an early age, then that's definitely going to give a head start to those generations. What about the other generations who are still, when you think about politics, to me, I think about politics, I think about anger, I don't know, arguments, I think of money, I think of power, I think of greed. Nothing positive comes up when I think of politics. So what can we do for people in my generation, other generations that maybe are a little biased in this area, to say the least?
I think it would just be helpful to tell the truth, you know. You know, it's very simple. You know, I mean, you know, I did a show a couple of days ago, and it goes out across the world on Sky, and I'm talking about the Prime Minister of Great Britain, and he's just made 5 pledges, and they're nonsense. You know, he's claiming that he will halve inflation this year, and I'm thinking, oh yeah, how's he going to do that then? You know, and then when he's questioned on it at a press conference afterwards, he doesn't have the answers. He has answers that have been fed to him by his PR team, which may sound good sound bites, but there's no sound judgment, you know, from just sound bites. And I think, you know, the way forward at the moment for politicians is they would be respected a lot more if they just told the truth. You know, if they've made a mistake or there's been a problem, talk about it, because we're all human. You know, but when they try to just cover these things up, because they think that if they actually respond and say I've made a mistake, that they won't be taken seriously, or won't go further up this slippery pole towards becoming leader of their party. Then I think, you know, in that way, you know, it would be, you know, perhaps the you know, perhaps one of the things that we should start in Britain and across the world is, you know, to give a prize for the best apology of the month by a politician.
that would be a great idea.
That would be a great idea.
Encourage them, to be honest. I love that. I love that. You know, what you just said, you know, truth. And it just reminded me, I don't know if any of you have watched, are watching the series on Netflix called Designated Survivor. It's actually, I think, because I used to watch The West Wing, I'm not sure if you're all familiar with that, it was one of my favorite TV shows. But Designated Survivor is like a modern version of The West Wing, and it's put in place an independent president who was a designated survivor, and the Capitol gets blown up, everyone gets killed, president, vice president, anyone, and he's the last man standing. So he gets to be the designated survivor, and so the president. And I swear to you, Ian, what you were just describing is how they're actually, this is the role model that he is exhibiting in as a president of the United States. So he's telling the truth, he's being transparent, and he's brought that sort of honesty to the White House. And in this show, they're showing that, you know, how he's winning both sides of Parliament, both sides of government, by being such a decent, honest person. So, you know, maybe they're trying to say something to the rest of the world, and Maybe this is the way we
Daisy,
should be
I
moving
love that.
forward.
I love that show. And I think the reason why I love it so much is because it's such a wonderful work of total fiction. The reality, and I kind of want to bring the media into it. And I love it. That's exactly the way we want government to work. I think we all know that. We all want that. But I'll pose you two scenarios, and I think this is true all over the world. If there are two politicians who disagree, and then all of a sudden in some room get together and come up with a compromise, nobody covers that. There's no headline. There's no story about it. It's just a wonderful thing that happened and nobody ever knows. But if two politicians disagree and they get into a fight over it, that's international headlines. So the only role models we have, really, are the role models that represent violence, anger, hatred, and unwillingness to compromise. And after a while, that just becomes part of the fabric of government, which is a shame. I mean, the whole idea of being a statesman, a statesperson, somebody who speaks the truth in and actually maybe injects a little bit of wisdom, not just knowledge and data and facts, but wisdom into the process of government. I mean, that just doesn't happen anymore. And it's frustrating. I'd like to imagine that it used to happen. Where's Winston Churchill when you need him?
I wouldn't say that Winston Churchill was particularly a good example out, because I think that the problem these days with politics, as I say, is that they've been, and what's hurts it even more is 24-hour rolling news. It's that whole thing of 3 o'clock in the morning and nothing is happening, and they've got to make the news sound sexy to whoever is awake and watching it somewhere in the world. The way they do it is to really upgrade a story to sort of something much more sensational, and I think politicians have sort of taken that on board as well. But I used to work with politicians and teach them how to swerve around questions. I think the reality at times is that it is. I often use the phrase, where politicians using sound bites rather than sound judgment these days. Become a lot more slick at it.
Definitely.
I have a couple of comments. Let me go over and get them. Let's see. They're from Anne Scotland, our new team member whose show is starting this week. I'm spiritual, but she writes.
Welcome, Anne.
Welcome. This is great, Daisy. Thank you. And she also writes, we need young people to step forward as new role models. And a final comment, many of the younger generation has a bigger heart for humanity and truth than previous generations. Empowering them to become role models in their sphere will be priceless now for the future. Thank you, Anne. Would anyone like to make a comment to Anne?
Thank you, Anne. And yes, the younger generation have to realize that if they want the future they want, they need to get involved in politics. Sadly, I know people think that politics is a dirty game, but there is no greater or more powerful expression from the Bible that says, evil flourishes when good men do nothing. And we have left politics to not so good men. So it is time for good men and women to actually take over the houses of power. And the younger generation needs to get involved in that way. And because I believe this generation, the millennials and the new generation, they're far more principled, and that's why they don't want to get involved, and they want to get onto whatever the social media and stay in their communities that they are safe in. But they're actually dividing. They're dividing the community. They're not uniting and building more strength and more power. By breaking into smaller communities. It's a whole ideology of divide and conquer. We need them to unite under principles, the higher principles that they all believe in, and get involved in politics. So that would be my call out to the younger generation, is stay committed to your principles, to your scruples, and don't let anyone change who you are, and fight for right and fight for truth and maintain that. Don't be bought. Don't be so cheap. There's a lot of cheap people in the world.
That's, you know, that I think that's a great point. I do want to pick up on Anne's point just a little bit. Are our schools doing enough to teach the younger generation how to harness their passion? What they want is a just world. What they want is just society. But we used to teach civics to kids. How do you make that work? How do you compromise? How do you work in the government, in the system of government we've created? I don't think we teach that to kids anymore, do we?
It's a good question.
I don't think so.
I think one of the most important things, and you know, when we're talking about young people, is they've got to find people who they trust, who are a generation in front of them, so that they can sort of nail their own colours to that mast. You know, Daisy, when Daisy was in London recently, and we all had this wonderful meal, and there was about 10 people turned up. And you could tell the atmosphere in the room was very, very powerful, you know, and we are all inspirational. You know, this is, I mean, you know, I look at this group of people that, you know, tonight, we are all very powerful people. We're all very inspirational. We know our subjects inside out. And I think it's important, but, you know, for programs like this and for channels like this as well, to actually constantly be beating that drum so that young people can actually see there is someone who will listen to them, and there is someone who they feel will give them good advice and create the trust that they're seeking, because they see so many, you know, we go back a year ago, just over a year ago, and all the conservation issues in Glasgow, you know, with the conference there, and nothing has happened. Now, a lot of these people are very much into conservation, but nothing has happened in their eyes at all. I think that Egypt happened last year. I've lost track of what's happening at the moment, or whether that's this year. And they feel constantly despondent. And so what I think young people are seeking now are people who they can actually believe in, and this panel is I think is a very good group of people who people can put their trust in.
Thank you, Ian.
Thank you very much.
I think it's very important that we acknowledge each other, and I think that's why we're working together, because our values are very aligned. And we want to make a difference in the world. And I think talking peace really helps focus people away from the noise and the, you know, the destruction and devastation and the, you know, the issues that Al was talking about too. But yeah, it's very good to have an opportunity in a forum where we can talk about it globally from all areas of the world, or all points of the world.
And I think it's very important for more women to be involved. I mean, Helena is you know, another great example of, you know, people listen to her now. You know, she does all sorts of TV shows, you know, on her views on the royal family and all sorts of things. And I think, you know, I'm reading Michelle Obama's book at the moment, her new book, you know, and you know, I love inspirational people. And, you know, I look at this collective here, and you're all inspirational as well. You know, and you know, it's perhaps we are the Salvation Army of the political world. You know,
I like that.
perhaps we seek salvation for ourselves. We seek salvation for the rest of the world at the same time.
Thank you, Ian. I want to go over to Helena. Would you like to share anything?
No, I was just thinking in my mind about politics and government and things like that, because political is also social groups, isn't it? It doesn't have to be just government. That's what I was thinking in my heart, because as certain a certain rift of talk. I mean, I thought we were actually going to be talking about something else today. So obviously my mind was on something else, but it's quite interesting listening to everyone's thoughts. And I guess I always bring things back to basics, which is, you know, in order to move forward, we always have to have peace within ourselves. That's really anything. Without peace within ourselves, I think it's hard to achieve what we want to achieve. That's my thought.
Thank you, Helena. I agree with that. And I really feel that when you're at peace yourself and you surround yourself with people who also are at peace, Ian, you mentioned that recently you found some new peace, that I think it makes a big difference. But if you're the kind of person who loves the drama, you love to get in there and mix it up with everybody and kind of stir the pot, so to speak. And there's a lot of people like that, that's part of the issue, that if we could somehow get each person around the world to focus on finding peace within themselves. And there's a number of ways of doing that, you know, whether it's meditation or yoga, or talking to somebody. I think that it's about giving people an opportunity to look at a new way of living because of the outcome, because of how they're going to feel on the other side of peace.
And I think perhaps to have good examples of what peace is like would be would be a great start as well, because
True.
When you look at there isn't one continent in the world that I could really sort of name right now that is totally at peace when you sort of think about it. You know, there's conflict either between continents or within citizens of a continent as well, and that we don't seem to be having a peaceful world, you know. So you know, perhaps how and it comes back to you know, when politicians meet, are they meeting to promote themselves or to promote their country? And you know, and how do you as I say, hold DAIZY does, and we all do in our own different ways, hold politicians' feet to the fire. But is it just purely down to politicians to create peace, or who else should be helping to create peace as well?
Everyone.
Yeah, every single person.
Yeah.
And I think it comes.
I'm sorry, Dr. JACALYN, I have a question for you. A little while ago, I didn't quite catch it. Did you say meditation or medication?
Al is he's a great fan.
Because I think the solution might be medication. We don't have enough time to wait for meditation to work.
I don't know. We might have too many people who are over medicated.
I agree, Dr. Jack. I agree.
Helena, you were going to say something?
Oh gosh, I can't remember what I was going to say. I think it was about economic stability. You know, obviously we've got so much strife in the world at the moment, and you know, do you all think that politicians telling 100% the truth in times like now, at this moment, would that be a huge help? I know that we're talking, it's good to tell the truth, I get it, but you know.
Yeah, I think the reality is, I don't know. You know, I hear my father's voice in my head. And when, you know, I was married many years ago, and we put on our wedding list that we wanted a color television. And my father said, "Why on earth do you want a color television? Why can't you just have a black and white television instead?" Every generation, the point I'm making is every generation has more aspirations than the previous generation. And I think, you know, the reality nowadays is that have our aspirations become too much? You know, are we so focused on money, on lifestyle and so forth, that it doesn't make us happy anymore. It doesn't make us peaceful. It makes us feel like I want to get the next thing. I want to get the next thing. And you know, confession time, I used to be like that, you know, and it was only when, you know, I had all sorts of different circumstances happen in my life that I eventually have now found peace in my life. Because now I have everything I want, and I'm probably the hardest person for anybody to get anything for, you know, because I have a very a nice life. I have a simple life, and I'm at peace with myself.
I'll take that as a challenge, Ian.
But maybe there's the answer. Maybe the answer is, instead of the politicians, instead of this big plan, maybe it's each person finding their own peace and then seeing where that goes.
I think that leads back to what Helena was saying before, and about that, you know, you have to be happy or peace within. You know, it all starts there, and having that relationship with your family, bringing us back to where we started. But I think one thing that Ian was saying, you know, about today's society, that it's very materialistic, it's very opportunistic. But I challenge that with the younger generations, and I challenge a little bit of that. I know there definitely is that focus. It's the me, because they don't trust. But just think about that. It's what can I get for me out of this, because I don't trust you and I don't trust anyone. I don't trust the world. So if we flip it, and actually what everyone is saying is, I want to trust. I want to trust people, but I'm too scared to let my guard down. And I think if we as a group, you know, represent people that they can trust, and if we can show people that it's okay to be vulnerable and trust, like Brené Brown writes in her books, her phenomenal books, being vulnerable is so important to being able to allow people to trust you, to feel your weakness, or that you're not scared to be to expose your weaknesses, because it's not a weakness, in fact. So I just think that, in fact, we're missing the point of where humanity is today. And humanity is saying, I want to trust somebody. I've lost trust in the church. I've lost trust in politicians. I've lost trust in the United Nations, institutions, you know, my community, because everyone's out for what they can get. But what I really want is trust.
It's not asking too much.
I think that is a great way to end our show. Say that again, Daisy.
I think what everyone wants in the world is someone to trust.
Someone to trust. Exactly. All right. Thank you. Thank you all for being here today. This was a fabulous second episode. And thank you to Anne Scotland for engaging with us. We really do appreciate it. We wish you very well on your first show on Wednesday. So as I always do, we're going to go around and have you share something of hope, inspiration, or just a thought that you might have for people who are watching or listening, whether it's now or on the replay. And we're going to start with Mr. CINI.
I'm glad you're starting with me. My takeaways are, we need to rebuild our institutions. And I think Ian makes a great point. Those institutions should be built on truth, a commitment to telling the truth. And Daisy's point, they should be organizations that we can trust and that we can have some faith in, and that we should be more willing to compromise. And I think if politicians were to move in that direction, we'd have a more effective government and happier lives. And also my other takeaway is, don't buy Harry's book. Don't buy that book.
Thank you, Al.
Am I wrong about that? Somebody argue with me.
You don't even have to buy it, because you can read the takeaways, that they have them all over the
excerpts.
Yeah, the excerpts. Exactly. Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Pelham Turner, looking very peaceful there.
Because Al, put your fingers in your ears. I'm off to buy the book tomorrow. It's out.
Now, are you buying that for? Are you buying that because of your role with the royal family in terms of reporting, or are you just buying it for personal information?
I'm just making sure my name's not in it. Because with all this going on, the strangest thing is that Al was talking about how much money they're going to make from the book. If you pre-order the book in Britain, you actually can get it at half price. So
Right.
So as I
I
said,
like that.
I have to be honest with you. I think I'm going to go to a bookshop tomorrow morning. There's a very good one where I live in London, and I'm just going to see, have they got the book, first of all, and second of all, I'm just going to watch whether people are queuing up to buy this book or not. But from a peaceful situation, yes, and I quite agree with Helena. I think it's gone too far, all of this now. But I think there has to be a resolution as well, to this matter. And I think, from a just purely brand Britain point of view, we want a united royal family. And I think that, Harry and Meghan would make incredible ambassadors of interest for the royal family in the United States, and that should really be a role for them.
Thank you, Ian. Helena?
I would like to say, well, firstly, I think to want peace, just as a general thing, I think we have to truly, truly want it and truly, truly believe we can achieve it. That's the first step. Really, you have to believe in it. And also just something purely, this is from my point of view, and something that I feel works for me. It's something that I've taken on board is, creating boundaries is really so important. And you can actually put this in the context of peace as well, because you make far better conscious decisions when you're at peace and you're calm. Just wanted to share that with everyone.
Thank you, Helena.
Very true.
Very true. Okay, Daisy.
Just on that point, if we really want peace, and if we really want people who we can trust, yes, 100%, I agree with Helena. We have to believe it's possible. If we don't believe, forget about it. But what comes after believing? It's what are we prepared to do to achieve peace, to get peace, or to find people that we trust, to be people someone can trust. That comes down to what our plan is, because you have to plan for peace. It's not just going to fall out of the sky. I remember I was doing an interview with a new member of parliament in Lebanon, one of the new Change MPs, and they're fighting for justice for the August 4 victims, the August 4 blast, Beirut bomb blast. And one thing he said to me, he's a lawyer, and he said, sadly, justice isn't given to us anywhere in the world. You have to fight for justice. And the same goes for peace. We have to stand up. We have to be committed to peace, to justice, to all of those virtues that we believe in. And that comes with pulling together a vision and a plan and being consistent, as Martin Luther King says, remaining steadfast in our commitment to it. The arc of the moral universe bends towards justice as long as we remain steadfast to its commitment. And that is, that's justice. It could be peace. It could be anything. So that's my final takeout today, is we have to have a plan and be committed steadfastly to it.
Thank you, Daisy. Thank you all. My final words would be, I really appreciate that you came here today and that you took the time to share. It's really valuable information. And I also feel that in addition to everything we're saying, and we've probably said this already, is we as individuals have to be accountable for our own behavior, for our own thoughts. Sometimes people say, well, I didn't do anything, but you were thinking things that were unkind. You were judging somebody because of what they said. And all of these things, to Helena's point, we have to set boundaries of how are we showing up for our brothers and sisters around the world? Are we leading with an open heart, or are we thinking something completely different, but acting a different way? And then the other thing is forgiveness. Can we forgive people for things that they did to us? Can we forgive ourselves for things that we've done for other people, or things we haven't done? And I think when we have forgiveness and we want a world where we're treated the way we're treating other people, that things will start to look a little bit different. But it starts with each and every one of us. We can't start pointing fingers and say it's his fault, it's her fault, they have to do something. We each have an opportunity as of today, as of this minute, to decide how we want to show up for ourselves and for others.
So true.
Hear, hear.
Agreed.
All right. Thank you all. I look forward to watching this later on the replay and having you all back next month. So thank you again for being here. And thanks to our audience. We really appreciate you. Please do go and subscribe on our YouTube channel, which is USA Global TV. Please do come and sit with CINI and myself, if you're sitting, standing, wherever it is, for our first year anniversary celebration. And I believe Ian and Helena will be there as well. And Daisy, you're certainly welcome to join us. It's on Sunday, which will be your Monday. So
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Good.
That's all for now. Also, we will have, I'm really excited about this. We will have a new intro for the show. We have new music. We have a new voiceover that the voice of USA Global TV and Radio is preparing for us, Mr. CINI. We have new music. Wonderful. We have a new logo. It's a very exciting time here. So thank you for taking this journey with us.
And I'll just say,
Right.
I'm going to be in Beirut next time we make this show. So you'll see me in Beirut.
Fantastic. That's great.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Sure.
All right. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you later. Bye.
See you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Cheers.